folks, welcome. Time to talk with Marie Smith. I've just had such a lovely chat with Marie, who is the owner of the Artisan Bothy, and she's also a she wordsmith. I think I've got that right. She wordsmiths and does photography, and she's such a talented lady. But she's very, very talented because she's got labs, which is really important to me. So sit back and enjoy my chat with Marie about all things from Craigie's civil engineering through to Labradors and furniture restoration. So enjoy Time to Talk with Marie Smith. And take care and stay safe. Bye-bye. Hi folks, I'm here with the lovely Marie from the Artisan Bothy. I'll never forget where you're from because you've got it on your is it an apron or an overall or is it dungaree?
It's an apron, yeah. So I'm a very messy painter, a really messy painter, so I need to have lots of cover-ups.
Oh man, you know, when I paint, it's in my hair and it's all over my face and I've got down my jeans and I'm terrible at it. But Marie, it's so good to have you on. I'm so glad you said you'd come on to it with me. Craigie, where to start? I mean, I can't believe that you used to be a civil engineer.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was. It goes before that actually. When I was at school, I was the first girl to take A-level engineering drawing, and I was the first girl in the whole of the town, not just the school. I remember having a real should we say debates with my engineering drawing teacher, who said, let's have a look at your O-level results, because it was O-levels and A-levels where we were down in England, and let's have a look at your O-level results. And he said, well, I think if you had a choice, I would probably choose needlework, because I did really well in my needlework as well.
Okay.
And I went home and I remember just spending the whole evening just depressed, because I thought, I don't want to do needlework. I had to make like 12 garments and know all the latest fashions in all the cities across the world. And my mum and dad were poor, you know, they were really poor. They didn't have money for that sort of thing. And I remember thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do about this, because I really want to do engineering. And there I was at sort of 16 years old. I went back in the following day and I went and found Mr. Ashworth and said, I've had a good think about this and I've decided I want to do engineering. And he said, it's funny actually, because I was coming to find you this morning, because when I got home last night, I got a real telling off from my wife suggesting we did needlework. So that was it. I guess the scene was set that I was always going to be a bit of a rebel when it came to deciding what I wanted to do with my career. So yeah, that's what I did. I put all the hours in and got really good A-level results and decided I didn't want to carry on at university. I wanted to go into vocational training. So I got a job at the council. So in the summers.
Scheme.
In the what, sorry?
Was it like the old apprenticeships?
It was kind of like that. They did sort of a 2 and a 4 year sort of short term. So you did a day release at college. Mm-hmm. Bolton Tech I went to 1 day a week, 2 days a week actually. It was 1 day in an evening, and that was me. So for the 4 years, and then I became a full-time at the end of it. So you worked for 4 days a week, and then you did college for a day a week. And I was in the sewage industry, wastewater. I mean, it used to be a great, you know, when you go to the clubs and the pubs and, you know, the guy would be saying, so what do? You go, I work in sewers.
What a shut up lines.
Yeah. Conversation stopper, you know, it was either a great line or a really, really bad line. So anyway, in the end, I married the team leader that I worked for several years. So yeah, so we kind of ended up back in house anyway.
That's brilliant. So what kind of things did you do? Because I don't know anything about the sewage industry or how so did you do like all the pipe work, or did you do? Yeah. Were you involved with the buildings right at the beginning? And
it was mainly, so it's all like below ground infrastructure type work. The local councils had the agency at the time to to operate and maintain and design the sewage network. And there's a whole, used to be, there isn't, it's probably still there but redundant now, but underneath, well, pretty much the whole of the UK, the sewer network is big brick tunnels underneath, and they were all starting to degrade. And I'm talking about man-sized, you know, people could stand up in them. And there was a big project that went on for probably a couple of decades, I think, replacing all of these with big, massive tunnels and storage shafts. And most of my work was on the drawing board. So mine was more about problem solving. So you go out with the engineers. I was a technician, so I was a civil engineering technician. And you go out with the engineers and do the survey work and then bring it back. And what you've got to do is try and make that work. You know, you've got a route to get to and long sections. And then you've got these shafts with all these different levels of pipe work coming in. And so it was a real, every project was a problem solving project. And I think that's probably what set me up for just about every career change, if you like, I've ever done. So it all comes back to problem solving, and I realise that's what I like doing. You know, I'm a fixer.
Yeah,
I like to fix things. So.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I've done like analysis, I've done systems design, systems analysis, and project management, and all of it has really helped me with every career that I've had. You know, just moving through setting up documents and managing myself and managing other people. And yeah, it's amazing how that first, if you get a really good career when you first leave school, it sets you up for the rest of everything else that you're going to do, doesn't it? So you lived in Bolton, or you live near Bolton?
I lived in Oldham actually, but Bolton was the sort of renowned. It was the Institute of Technology at the time, so it was a college, but it went on to become polytechnic status after I left actually. So they did degrees and all sorts of things. So yeah, I started off. I did Manchester for a couple of years, I think, Manchester College of Building, but then moved to Bolton because I decided that Bolton was a far superior establishment, really, and that showed in the results. You know, it was a better standard all round, I think.
Brilliant. And what made you change careers? Why did you leave like civil engineering? Well,
what would I have been? I would have been 18, and we moved up here so that was 1983, and I moved up here in 2009. And I actually stayed in the wastewater industry, or in the water industry. But what I did was I started off at the drawing board end, so I was doing the design detail, and then I went to work for a consultant and moved into what we call the needs and solution stage. So it was analysing where the sewer network might fail and then coming up with project solutions to get funding for. And then I moved into the water company itself to do the whole asset management plan. So they used to do every 5 years, they get to essentially bid for how much they want to charge the customer in order to maintain their network. And then from there, I ended up moving into their IT side, which probably sounds strange, but it was business analysts. Yeah. So we now have a water company with people on the ground who are still sweeping sewer screens, you know, at Sewage Works with brushes and driving miles and miles around the whole of Yorkshire Water it was. And they're looking for software solutions to help them work more effectively and efficiently. So in effect, whilst I was no longer on the drawing board side, it was still problem solving.
Yeah.
So I kind of lost the civil engineering side, but became more and this is what tends to happen within the water companies, that people are not kind of pigeonholed into those that build and those that design. And you get people quite often will weave their way through different roles within the water industry. But it's all related back to a transferable skill, I suppose, is the way to look at it. So yeah, I was still officially a civil engineer when I moved up here. But then, of course, when we moved up to Scotland, I say up here, up to Scotland, the opportunity to stay with the water company pretty much disappeared. Our nearest office is 2 hours drive away, and I had a decision to make, which is how I ended up going into the events industry.
Wow. So did you move straight to where you are now? You moved into the home you're in now?
Yeah. We had it for 3 years as a like little bolt hole retreat, but the intention was always to retire here.
Wow.
Although we hadn't planned to retire quite as quickly as we did. Steve got the opportunity to be a home worker and decided he could home work from Scotland just as easy as he could home work from Manchester, which is where, we were on the outskirts of Manchester by then, and his office was in London, so he could fly to London from here quicker than he could get the train down to London from where we were. So
technology is amazing, isn't it? It's just made everything so much nicer, where you don't have to live in the city to work in the city. It's just all. Marie, have you been to the Hollow Mountain?
I haven't, no.
Do you know the reservoir, the water thing, where it oh god, I'm good. Oh god, the Scots are going to hate me for this. Is it Kraken? They're probably going, it's this, Les. I can't remember what it's called. I'm sorry, I'm going to be really rude and look it up because it's going to drive me mad. There's I think it's in the Cairngorms, and it's a hollow mountain. The reservoir's at the top, and they use it to generate electricity. Have you not come across that?
I don't know.
I haven't seen it, but it looks. I'm being really rude now. I hope you don't mind. I've just got to find out what this is called because it's going to drive me nuts, and I'll not be able to concentrate on what you're saying. But it looks.
I'm just writing that down because that sounds like a fantastic thing to go and see.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks amazing. I'm sure it's called the Hollow Mountain Reservoir, Scotland. God, YouTube. Right, it's Kraken. That's not how you pronounce it. I'm sure that's not how you pronounce it. I'm really sorry to everybody who's Scottish laughing at me. It's Cruachan, and I'll put a link in the notes. And it's a power station, and it's a man-made reservoir. And what they did is, I think what they do is they allow the water to drain so far during the day.
Okay.
Generates electricity, and then when the electricity is cheap or something, they pump it all the way back up to the top of the mountain. And it's a energy generator. And
I wonder if I've seen
just
it.
when you were talking about, these big tunnels and wow.
Yeah, no, that sounds fascinating. I'm surprised we've never heard it. Steve might have done because he's well, again, he was a civil engineer, but ended up more on the geotechnical side. So building all sorts of things, including pumping stations, but working in some very quite harsh countries. So he was putting infrastructure in places like Kosovo and and out in sort of like the Saudi Arabia type areas and places like that. So yeah.
God, that's amazing. So you moved into the events business. I will get onto your dog. Where I'm trying to do it chronologically to see where the dog fits in.
Yeah, where it all came
so
in.
You then became an events planner.
Yeah. I've always, I suppose the other side of me was a bit of a born organiser. I love a bit of a social secretary, really. If there was an opportunity to do anything, whether it's entertaining at home or getting a group of people together at work for a night out, that was the sort of thing that I really enjoyed doing, and I was doing that for many years. A member of the family was a Freemason, and I got the opportunity to do some of their stationery and help with a little bit of their side of planning the events that they had to do when it was kind of their year, and I think that got me interested because I thought there must be a market for this. And for years I kept thinking there must be a market for this, and it was only when I hit a real low, I'd gone through a really tricky period. I'd basically taken the wrong job at work, and I really got encouraged to take it, and it really didn't suit me, and I ended up off for a wee while with stress. And it was during that time that I thought, do you know, is this the time to make a change and start to do something different? So I started up my own business.
Wow.
In event styling. So it wasn't event management, it was event styling. So it was putting all the pretty things into events, and although you do end up being a little bit of an event planner as well, with people that don't really know and understand how things work. So yeah, that was how I ended up going into the event side of things. And I then went back to my full-time job, but continued to do this as a little sort of sideline and interest, really. And it worked wonders in, I suppose, a number of ways, because it took my mind off some of the other things that were going on. And I always felt like it was never going to be forever, because I could move to doing my own business. And of course, when we came up here, that was the business I brought with me. The decision was taken that if we move, then I need to have a form of income. I couldn't come here and retire. I mean, I wasn't even 50 then, Les. So you can imagine, as people used to say, I can't imagine you hanging your boots up. And I said, no, not for a long, long time. So that was what I did. I brought my events business up here and effectively rebranded and started all over again. So I was doing pretty well in the Manchester area, and then of course you come up here, and it's a whole new customer base. You're much further spread. You're dealing with lots of different venues, much different venues, and even the way you can get married up here was different to where it was down where I came from, because you had to go into a licensed venue down in England. So there were only certain venues that were allowed to conduct ceremonies, where up here you can pretty much get married anywhere, can't you now? So yeah, so that was the event side.
Wow. And so where does that fit in with when you got your first dog?
Actually, yeah, well, our first dog was earlier than that. So that was back in 1990. So we'd been married about 3 years. Do you remember the TV series Superdog?
I do. I saw you'd written down it was Superdog that you were interested in.
It was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. I remember us being glued to this and going, wow, look at what those dogs can do. That's amazing. And that was what planted the seeds. So we actually got a rescue dog to start with. We got this Springer Spaniel. And he was being given up by a family who wrote this lovely letter about what he was and, you know, why they couldn't look after him anymore. And he turned out to be, he obviously had some psychological issues. And he bit me, and he bit the girl that used to come and do my ironing quite badly. And he'd been nipping at the ankles of my father-in-law, who lived with us at the time. We thought he was making it up because we never saw the dog move.
Yeah.
And he used to go walking by and he'd say, she's bit me. And she was a he, you know, so we were thinking, oh, he's obviously getting confused. And so, yeah, the Spaniel was with us for about 3 or 4 months, and we sent him, he ended up going back to the rehoming because I said, I just can't. Yeah. It was our first dog, Les, and I think knowing what I know now, we didn't know enough to take on a rescue that potentially we didn't know enough about. Yeah. And as far as we know, he went to join the RAF as a drug, and we said he went to be fitted out for his uniform. They said they were getting trialled to go and join the RAF because they're quite keen on taking, or were quite keen on taking, dogs that were a little bit older. So he was just on the borderline. He was 3, maybe 4 years old, and they would take dogs up to about that age as potentially as sniffer dogs and working dogs. So
wow,
that was Danny. So Danny went back, and we decided we still wanted to consider a dog, and we got Megan. You probably can't quite see from here, but Megan was our first yellow Labrador. I'll see if I can just, there you go. So just in the top left there. So that was Megan. But she was primarily show dog. She wasn't, we didn't understand how you find out about working lines and things like that. So she came primarily from show lines, and We used to call her our dizzy blonde. No offence to blondes, but she was really
Right
dizzy.
there with you.
she was really dizzy. But she was brilliant, and she taught us so much. And we had her for nearly 17 years.
Good, she really, really old for
she got to see here when we bought here. She was coming up here with us, and so she had her final winter was here with us. So
awesome.
She was amazing. She was amazing. By which time we introduced more dogs then from the working lines coming in, because we really just wanted to work the dogs and train with them, and because that's what they love doing. You know, they're born to do it, I think. So
I think if you've got a working dog, if you can, even if you're not going to take them out shooting, I think, or picking up or beating or whatever it is, you know, people do with them, I think if you can tap into that intrinsic behavior, you know, like if you've got a retriever, teach it to retrieve, you'll have a happy dog at home. If you've got a spaniel, teach it to hunt, but you don't have to, just give it a dummy. And I think it's really important if you've got any of the working breeds to do stuff with them.
And it gets us out as well, you know. Steve and I have often had diverse interests, so you know, we spend all week working, and then the weekend we wouldn't necessarily spend together. He would go off clay pigeon shooting. I did eventually do some clay pigeon shooting actually, but again, I only did that for a little while, and I did that primarily just to try and have some similar interests. But working the dogs together and training the dogs together, and that feeling of satisfaction when what we used to do was, as the older dog, as we brought a younger dog in, and then he would work with the younger dog, and then I got the older dog to work with. Great distractions, and Teal was like our oldest working dog, and he was a black lab from the Drake's Head lines. So nice. We always used to say he was like an Exocet. Oh my God, he was, absolutely. But he was just, he was special. Yeah, I'll get emotional now, but yeah, he was a special boy. He was smarter. He was smarter than any of us, or at least he thought he was, I think. And he taught the other dogs, you know. He taught them the way, and, you know, we look at Kira now, and they had a side-by-side kennel, and he always kept his kennel spotlessly clean. He was devastated if he ever had an accident in his kennel. And Kira was the same, you know, while she was a kennel dog. The two of them, beautiful spotless kennels. You go next door, and we had this scruffy little cocker spaniel who'd been brought up with. She'd come from she lived with a set of pack hounds, so she didn't, you know, she wasn't house trained. She wasn't even kennel trained. And of course, she was next door to Grouse. So her and Grouse were the dirtiest. Grouse was also a black Labrador, but they were the scruffiest little apiths. You know, they didn't care.
That's what goes on there. So
yes, what I'll do what I want.
I've got to ask you the question: why black? Because you had the lovely Megan, who was yellow. What made you go black? Because people are generally black labs or yellow labs, or you don't get much of a crossover a lot of the time. What made you go black?
And you know, if I'm honest, I'm not entirely sure why we went black, other than by the time we were looking for, because a number of years had elapsed. We had Megan for nearly 10 years before we decided to get a working dog. And I think it was because by then we were going to lots of country fairs and watching lots of demonstrations, and there were a lot of black labs. I don't know, you'll know this yourself as a Labrador person, Les, but for a while yellows were not so. Were getting harder and harder to come by in the working lines, and people were working much harder to bring the yellow back into the lines. Yeah. So there was a lot more blacks around, and I remember us just falling in love with and watching a couple of black labs. It might have even been John Halstead Senior's black labs that we were watching and going, wow, look at that. Isn't that just a beautiful dog? Small, you know, a much smaller build than some of the other dogs. I mean, they're going back the other way now, so they tend to be a much stronger builds, I think. But the working lines, you know, the Drake's head lines particularly, were getting smaller and smaller and smaller. You know, they're becoming almost like sort of whippet size, you know, some of them. But we were just particularly taken with a couple of blacks. But I'll be honest, we didn't actively go out and decide we were going to have a black Labrador. It was we looked at the lines and we looked at kind of the working dogs that were making that up and thinking, well, we've seen that one work and we know that's a good dog, and we've seen that one work and we know that one's quite a good dog, and that would make, you know, that looks like it would be good lines. And the litter that we picked from when we got Teal was only blacks. You know, when we went, we knew we wanted a dog this time, and interestingly enough, we've gone the other way now because we're all bitches. Yeah, all bitches. But for a while, dogs were our thing, you know. Yeah, so there was no science behind choosing a black, other than we just felt like it'd be nice to have a black lab.
I mean, I'm going to.
Of course, we've got yellows now. So the two that are in the kennels now, so Sally and Isla are yellows. So we're back the other way again.
I hadn't realised that. I mean, I'm going to stay black. I had a golden retriever, and I just got so fed up with blonde hair all over. I wear black. I wear a lot of black and black jeans and black trousers, and oh man, just blonde hair everywhere.
Yeah,
you know. But then, I mean, my Goldie, when he shook, he just like this big blonde cloud come off him, and so I'm sticking with black. Hopefully, I'm after one of my trainees has got a bitch who's due in season any minute, and she's a beautiful black lab, and I'm hoping she's going to give me a black dog.
Oh, okay.
It's time for
Excellent.
me. So I kept going. When we saw her last month, I was going, give me a black boy, give me a black boy, give me a black boy. So, you know, I'll probably get a yellow bitch or something.
Yeah.
You know.
It's often the way, isn't it? I mean, you're going with this idea. And, yeah,
she's a lovely dog. She's a lovely native dog. So we'll see. But oh my goodness, I was going to ask you something and it's completely gone. It's going to be, dog and bitches. So why, because you started with a bitch and then you went dogs and now you've gone back to a bitch. And I've only ever had one bitch, and that was when I was 13, my first bitch, and I've had dogs ever since. So why do that U-turn?
I suppose there were a number of things. One, because Megan was our first dog and she wasn't from working lines, and our experience was she was easily distracted. And I suppose you plant that in your mind, don't you? You think, well, that's bitches for you. They must be easily distracted. So we'll, you know, and so we decided, well, we'll probably look for a dog this time. They seemed stronger characters. Not the same issues with coming to, because if you want to keep them intact and they come into season, whether you're a shooting person and, you know, it messes up your shooting season, messes up in inverted commas, or whether it's just simply the fact that you
can decimate it for a month.
That's it. Well, you're not working this month, you know, or if you just do tests, open tests, or going along to scurries and things like that, you know, if your bitch comes into season, that potentially, and I suppose when you've only got, at the time we only had the two, you know, your options. Megan, we never worked really other than just a little bit of playtime. Teal was a little bit more of a working dog. And Grouse was the same, really. So when we got Grouse, we decided, well, yes, we like the dog, so we'll get another dog. And then having done that, I think we switched back to bitches. So we only had 2 dogs in amongst, effectively, what will now be 4 bitches. In all honesty, I think we thought if we had a nice bitch, we would at some point consider whether we would like to get our own kennel name, which we have, and breed from our own bitch. Not breed as in breed to sell, but our next dog or bitch would come from our own bitch. And you can only do that, of course, if you bring your own bitch in. So that's kind of the thought process behind where we started with Megan. Went through the dogs, and then went the other way and back to a bitch with Kira.
And do you
who then threw us a.
Do you know the difference?
Well, it's interesting now, isn't it? For all that we said dogs, so I love working dogs, and I do. I really enjoyed working Teal because he's a bit like me, really. He's headstrong, and he was, I realised that was more about him and his personality, and not his gender, but because we've got bitches that are like that as well. But Steve says he finds bitches now more biddable. And again, that might just be the character, the way they are, but he finds them slightly easier to hang on to, slightly easier to handle. We may have just dropped lucky in the ones that we've had. Having said that, the last one that we've got, she's out of her own litter, but she's a harem scarum, I can tell you. she tests his patience. But yeah, I think in the main, he would probably stick with bitches now, rather than switch to a dog. As he says now, if you put a dog in amongst this lot, we really have got chaos, haven't we? So, it's keeping them apart. But so bitches, it's remained.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I haven't really considered getting a bitch. It was only just there when we're talking, I thought, oh yeah, it'll be typical puppy, you'll have all girls, and then I'll be stupid. I'll have to decide. So, because the lady my friend Jill, who's always bred my lab, she stopped breeding now. She retired from breeding, and so there'll be no more of the tagtastic line for me.
No,
which is a shame. So when Marie, I've only ever known you as two things. As I say two things, I'll actually say four things. Thinking about it, I can't count. So I met you through the ASB at the beginning of last year. So you do stuff for the Association of Scottish Businesswomen. Do you still on the committee?
No, I dropped off the committee this summer, having done almost 6 years as part of Businesswomen's Group. So I first came in to Murray Businesswomen, who of course is one of their affiliate groups. In all honesty, just to have a bit of a social life. I felt like I was, I'm rural, very isolated. The events and wedding business, you'd think would be lots of people around, but actually it's not. It's really isolating. For 6 days a week, you hold up here ironing chair covers, and then you get to a venue and they open the door and they let you in and they just leave you to it. So, apart from when you're meeting customers, you didn't really meet anybody at all. And I reached a point where I thought, gosh, I'm coming up for 50 and I still haven't really met anybody up here. I don't have a lot of friends and I have neighbours and things, but I kind of felt quite isolated. So that was why I got into Murray Businesswomen. And that was 2015, I think I officially joined their committee, although I'd been a member for a wee while. That's right, yeah, 2015. I won Businesswoman of the Year that year. And then went on to be their vice president and president. And then having completed all of that, I had literally 6 months, I call it a sabbatical. I went doing bits of volunteering. So I trekked in the Sahara, and a year later went volunteering in South Africa, and decided that's me. I'm not going to do any more committee work now for a while. And the association, it was Wendy Maltman actually, who was the president at the time, said, would you consider joining our committee? So I gave it a good thinking about while I was away and thought, yeah, I might like that actually. So yeah, I did that for 2 years.
Wow. So when you did your sabbatical and you went off to South Africa, is that what really got you interested in photography? Because I've seen you do absolutely, this is the other thing that I knew you from was your wildlife photos. your She Wordsmith, which is your
Mm-hmm.
blogging, and the Artisan Bothy, which of course is what you've got on your apron.
Yeah.
But so was it when you were in South Africa that really got you into photography? Because your wildlife photography is absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Do you know, it was probably the other way around, I think. We were really late comers into the whole travelling abroad thing and holidays. My 40th birthday, we had one of these conversations where we said, if you could go anywhere in the world for your holiday, where would you go?
Mm-hmm.
And Steve just said, I'd go on safari. And I'm thinking, we've been married how long, and how did I never know that? So I'm an impulsive person, so the next day I'm there, looking it up, and come home with this little, in my lunch hour, I'm going to just check this out, and came back with this. We could go with these, and he'll laugh at you because he says, that's what I do, he almost doesn't want to plant the seed in case I go off and I've already booked the holiday. So yeah, long story short, 40th birthday at Kenya. And we made the decision then that we would do it again. It was just a taster. We just did a couple of days off the back of a beach holiday, actually, and fell in love with it. It was 7 years before we went back. So 7 years. I think that was the year Steve retired. So it was a milestone. What should we do? Mm-hmm. And we went to South Africa. We did Cape Town. We did the wine region. And then we finished up in a really nice lodge on the edge of, it was the Makalali Greater Game Reserve, actually, a place called Garonga, and it only had 6 tents on stilts. And I'm thinking, oh, where's the bathroom? Those are the things I'm thinking about, like, I wonder if I could do that. And we decided that was for us, that was absolutely the way we wanted to go. And that was probably what really got me into picking up my camera again. So I've been a keen photographer from the age of about 13, but mainly scenic views and things like that. And so it was being on holiday doing this safari that got me back into doing that. So we've been back to Africa 2 or 3 times since. So we've been to Tanzania, back to South Africa, and I think having been, and you get to know the staff and the guides, and you get to hear about how hard it is for them to succeed, and they have they work for 3 weeks on, and then they've got to drive for 3 days to get back to their family for a couple of days, and then they're back again, and there's something about that makes you think, actually, I'd really like to do something, so still go back to Africa, but to put something back in. So that's how the volunteering came about. And alongside of that, and actually that's where the writing came from.
Oh, okay.
So it was almost the other way around. So yeah, it was going on holiday, taking lots of photos, got me to go and do some volunteering work. I'd done the trek in the Sahara the previous year. So I'd done a bit of charity build up to that. So I'd been writing a blog for that. So that's kind of where the writing came from. And then we went to Botswana last year. So we went on a dedicated photography, 10 or 11 days, I think it was in total, on the Chobe River, accompanied by 2 professional photographers. So that was the switch between being just a hobby photographer to, wow, when you really know how to look. And I'm not very good with settings on cameras. I'd always shot in auto, and to know how to manually use your camera is incredibly satisfying. And it's just a wonderful thing because you sort of see things differently, I think, through the lens. So yeah, and again, it's interesting because Steve's had that interest, and he's used his camera much more, I suppose, professionally. He's more focused, no pun intended. He's more focused on his photography for years before I was. So this was a great opportunity for us both to start to share an interest again, that we both get the same level of enjoyment out of, really.
That's amazing. I mean, I did, I call it a photography course, but it wasn't. It was like 3 hours with Nick Ridley. He did an introduction to photography. He's a dog photographer. He's like the most amazing dog photographer. And I went on the course and I had my little Canon G9, I think it was, G11, and everybody else had these massive lenses. I was sitting there going click, click, and he did show us how to use them all. But and I still go on auto and rapid shoot because I do lots of like stuff. And but you certainly look at things with different eyes, don't you? Because I was saying to one of the girls who's a photographer, and I've gone from when I'm out training the dogs now to going, oh, that'll make a nice retreat, to going, oh, that'll make a nice photo. You know, you look at everything with different eyes, don't you?
Yeah.
I remember the photos that really made me go, wow, your photos were the ones of the puffins.
Oh,
you did some
honestly?
you did this amazing photo of a puffin coming into land. And I think they had a fish, but it was just stunning. And oh my God, that's just such an amazing photo.
Yeah.
You know, it was so good. So that's what made me go wow with your photos. Do you find the photography work really helps with your Artisan Bothy stuff, because you've got this eye of what works and what doesn't work? And
I think the two things maybe don't help each other, but it's excuse me. There's obviously sorry, just drying my throat there. So there's obviously a creative side, I think. So the ability to use colours is obviously a big thing, and framing and understanding. I suppose now you start to think about when I first started painting my furniture. I was rubbish at staging it, really rubbish at photographing it. You know, I just quick photo and stuck in a corner somewhere. We occasionally used to bring something in the house and look for a blank wall, but I've learned a lot now about framing the piece and setting it off with what's going on around it. And that almost certainly has come from the photography side, and understanding how to use the camera so that you get the most natural light. I couldn't have done that 12 months ago. You know, it was going on the Botswana trip, and it's, you know, having people explain to you what settings and how things work. That's how you realise, oh, now I know why that's dark, or why that's got shadows and things like that. So it's more the mechanical side of using the camera. Sorry, excuse me.
No, have a drink. You've been talking all the way through. I've just been sitting back and listening, which has been lovely for me, but probably really tiring for you. I am going to ask you some more questions. You have a good drink while I have a chat, because I've seen some of the stuff that you've done on Facebook through the Artisan Bothy. Are you okay, Marie?
I'm having a slight choke, I think.
Yeah, you have a good cough. You have a good cough, and I'll just talk. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of your stuff on Facebook, a lot of the furniture that you do, and it always looks amazing. And the restorative work, I haven't really got the patience to do things like that. Although I love painting, and I love painting rooms. I think one of my sisters used to restore furniture. I remember she had this really old table, and she sanded it down. She was painstaking with it. And I think for me, I'm not confident enough to take a piece of furniture and strip it back, because I think I'd be so frightened because I completely messed it up. And then it's like, okay, I've done this, now what? And one of the girls I used to know, we had this really old pine ottoman. We decided we didn't want it anymore, and she said, "Oh, I'll take it." And it was quite an old-fashioned one. It was the ones where it was like panelled at the front. Do you know what I mean? And she took it, and she sent me a photo. About, oh God, I want it back now. It looked lovely. It was all like grey, and then the panels were dark grey. and I just great. So what made you get into like furniture restoration, or is it called upcycling or recycling?
Yeah, well, it gets called all sorts of things really. There's upcycling and repurposing and refinishing. It found me, in all honesty, when I gave up the events business. Sorry. This is not good, is it?
No, it's, this is real life, Marie. I
talking too much. So, so when I gave up the events business, and I thought I'll probably just write for a while. I'm not really sure what else I want to do. And I realised probably a couple of months into that it wasn't fulfilling my need to produce something. Yeah. The thing about painting a piece of furniture, events, dressing events, you've got all this hard work in the week, but at the end of it, you have something to show for it. And you're dealing with people on a face-to-face basis as well. So I think I'm very much a customer-focused person. Mm-hmm. So I was missing the customer interaction, and I was missing producing something and having something in front of me. And it was quite by accident. We were doing up the guest room. We've been here for, how many years would it be? 10 years or something. 10 or 11 years. No, it was more than that, 12 years. And we were doing up the guest room, and we had one of these Victorian towel rails in there, and it was looking a bit shabby. And I said to Steve, I don't know what we're going to do with this. And he remembered that there was a shop not too far from here that sold furniture paint. So he said, well, you paint it? Well, and Steve loves wood, he's very much about, don't you dare go near that piece of furniture with your paintbrush, So for him to say that, that's what I did. So I set off and I went and got my paintbrush and my pot of paint. And I came back and painted up this Victorian towel rail.
Wow.
I loved it. I fell in love with furniture there. I went, oh, what else can I paint? I'm walking around with my paintbrush thing. Cabinet. So I literally just started painting furniture to the point where I couldn't get enough of it. I swore they were putting drugs in this paint because I didn't want to leave it. It's like, what else can I paint today? So I turned what used to be my old wedding studio, which was where I used to do, it was my showroom, and it's where I used to do my consultations, into my painting studio. I should say it's, because that sounds like a hobbyist business, but I helped restore furniture for years. But waxing wood and, picking up old pieces of antiques and giving it new life, but by waxing it and staining it and recovering it, I'd done all of that, but I'd never done any painting. So yeah, that's how painting came about. And I guess I got really brave when I wrote a story about it, actually. Steve said, do you want to do something with this cupboard? And this cupboard was in we have a row of kennels, the outbuildings with the old kennels and beaters, Bothy.
Right.
So it used to be a big shooting estate around here. Richard Waddington, you probably have heard of him. And this was the keeper's cottage and the kennels. And in the back there was this cupboard. And so I brought it through and I cleaned it all and I sanded it all. And in my head, I was convinced it was a piece of furniture that used to be Stephen's father's, and we brought it with us and we started painting it and thought that's what it was. So there I am, painting away and turned it into something fantastic. But it took me ages. I had to keep going back to the woman I bought the paint from and say, am I doing something wrong? Because this is taking forever. And then I realised it was not that cupboard at all. My mum has that cupboard. When I was telling her about it, she said, I've got that cupboard. That's not that cupboard. I've got it. And it turned out it was an old cupboard that had been left here when we moved in, and it had paint stored in it. So goodness knows how old it is.
Wow.
And that was what gave me the confidence, because I thought, if I can do that, I can do anything, you know, picking up bits of furniture. So.
And you do reupholstery as well, don't you?
I do, yeah, I do.
Reupholstered from you.
Yeah, and again, I am self-taught on that. You know, I've learned a lot from reading and watching tutorials and things, and understanding the fire regulations. There's a lot of upholstery goes on that is not necessarily done to standard.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, for resale, it's really important that you make sure that you understand the age of the piece and how much you have to strip back and where you have to take it to, and then making sure you've got the relevant fire barriers in, depending on what your top piece is going to be. So, so the upholstery side is a much more, it's harder. You know, it's harder because you've got to get it right. You know, you're dealing with health and safety and putting it into people's homes and make sure you've got the right labelling and things like that. Yeah, that's satisfying too.
Don't really think about that with the reupholstery. I mean, you know, when you buy stuff, you have to make sure it's fire retardant and stuff, but then it didn't even enter my head for reupholstering. So, do you have a dog in with you in the Bothy when you're doing your work?
Sometimes Kira comes across, not very often, I must admit, but she knows if I'm not around, you know, and the door's open, that's where she'll find me. She quite often makes a beeline over there now to just go and have a look, and she occasionally has a little rug just curled up in the corner where she'll come in there. But it's very rare that we're both in there. Steve has the workshop for the woodworking next door, and sometimes she'll just go in there with him as well. I have a lovely toasty wood burner in there, so when she comes in with me, of course, it's snug as a bug, where on Steve's side it's the cold side, you know. It's
okay.
Yeah, so that's no fun at all.
no, I think I'd rather be in with you in the warm.
Yeah,
definitely. So what's next for Marie? What's your plans? You've got a young dog at the minute, haven't you?
Yeah, we've got
getting any more dogs?
Not at the minute, I don't think. Isla will be 4, I think. So we had a litter of puppies from Sally. We actually bought Sally as she was a 9-month-old dog. Les, do you know Les McLean? No, Les is a regular handler and field trialer, and he's been a judge as well at many field trials, and he's from up in Vanessa Way. And when we were thinking of breeding from Kira, it was Les really that put us right on. We knew about all the tests that we had to do. You know, we'll make sure we get our hips scored and we'll go and get our eyes tested and things like that. But we did it all in the wrong order. We went and got our hips scored and everything, felt fantastic. And then we took her to go and have her eyes tested, and we discovered she had hereditary cataracts. So we were gutted, absolutely gutted. Of all the dogs we've had, Kira is probably the sweetest natured dog you could ever wish to have. She's a keen worker, she's a keen retriever, she fits in with everything, apart from very recently she started to have some issues, but she's an older dog, you know, but all through, I mean, she came here in that winter, 2010, when we were up to here in snow, you know, and this little 8-week-old, 9-week-old puppy arrived and then saw winter in the kennels. You know, she just joined the pack and became, so it's incredible. She's an incredible dog. And we decided that she would make a good mum, and we'd love to have a litter from her because we'd love another dog like her. And of course that all got knocked on the head with the hereditary cataracts. But Leslie's dog, it was Leslie's dog that we were going to use as the stud. And he had a young bitch there at the time who was 9 months old. And just out of the blue, he got in touch to say he was considering selling her because he was going to be taking a break. I think he was going away, and he wasn't sure that he would have the time, so he was considering selling it. Would we be interested? So we bought Sally. If you can hear a noise in the background now, that's Kira just having a little dream, by the way. So that's
bless her.
She's just in the corner. So we bought Sally, and Sally's a cracking dog, very strong dog, beautiful, incredibly switched on, you know, and she's a very what I call a very close dog, you know. So she just wants to get things right, you know, and she works very, very hard. So we did end up having a litter from her. We were ready to bring another dog. We've tended to, every 2 to 3 years, think about succession, you know, and I couldn't imagine life without a dog, you know. So we had a litter of pups from Sally, and Isla is one of Sally's pups. So she'll be 4 years old, I think, now. But we're down to 3. So we've got Kira, who's a house dog, and we've got Sally and Isla, mum and daughter, who are in the kennels. We lost the Scruffy Spaniel last year, bless her. She would have been coming up for 13.
Good day.
And I think we kind of feel that 3 feels like the right sort of number for us now. You know, the bigger the kennels, and it's going on holidays and things, just the cost of kenneling is another small holiday for us. So yeah, I think we've kind of got the balance right now with the 3. Kira will be coming up for 11. In fact, she's 11 next week.
Wow.
So we're always thinking about, you know, who knows how long Kira will have Kira. Megan was nearly 17. So, you know, I don't think we'd look to introduce another one now, probably until we know where we are with Kira, I think.
It is interesting, isn't it? I was talking to my friend last night, and we were talking about number of dogs, because I lost Ziggy 4 years ago. He was my special dog, you know, the dog that you just look at and they know what you're doing. And it stopped me training. I couldn't train my dogs when I lost him, and now, you know, nearly 4 years later, I'm thinking, well, I was a 3 year. Oh God, I've lost track of time. But I used to really enjoy having 3, because you could take one out and train it and not feel bad about leaving the other 2.
Yeah, that's right.
I had company. Yeah. And whereas now that I'm down to 2, and now that I'm back to motivated to be training, because I just couldn't face training dogs for a couple of years after I lost Sig. I now don't want to take one out on its own, even though I want to go out and train my dog. I don't want to take it out on its own, because I don't want to leave the other one at home alone, you know. So it's a whole human guilt thing, isn't it? So, yeah, I'm looking forward to going back up to 3. And then when we go on holiday, we take 1 with us and leave 2 behind. So they've got company in the kennel, and we've got 1 dog, which is always much easier to take on holiday with you, and much nicer as well, because a lot more relaxed, isn't it? So
yeah, we're the same. Kira's been our holiday dog now for probably about 4 or 5 years, I think, and she is now a house dog, actually. So she came in the house probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I think, after she'd had an operation and then never ended up going back out. You know, you're slightly selfish, but you just think, oh, do you know, I don't think I could have a house without a dog in it now. Yeah. So yeah, she's very adaptable, and she's quite happy on holiday. So kenneling the other 2 together on their own is much, much easier. And of course, then when they all go in kennels, that, you know, they all pile in together, and they're great company anyway. So
yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, Marie, it's been so good talking to you. And you know, we kind of meandered everywhere. And it's just been so lovely chatting to you and finding out a bit more about you, because I've always been really interested in, you know, your photography and your she wordsmith, which we haven't talked about much. How's your mum's book going?
My mum's book's doing really well. She keeps joking about she might need to have an offshore account. I've had to calm her down and say, it's not that much, Mum. But you have to remember, my mum and dad you know, have always scrimped and saved, and they've never had much money. You know, I was always amazed as a kid how she made very small wages go a long way. You know, that was an incredible thing, really. But for my mum, I think it's more the pride of having finally published the book that she wanted to publish 30 years ago. You know, I proofread 2 or 3 chapters for her just as I started work. So I would have been 18 and I'm 55 now. So that's how long ago, you know, we're talking over 30 years.
How lovely.
Yeah. So she's proud of having done it. And a few people have said, when's the sequel coming out? So
what's the book called? Let me write this down. What's the book called? And I'll put a link.
It's called Of Kith and Kin, A Moonraker's Tale. And a moonraker is said to be someone that was born in Middleton within the sounds of the Nouster Bell, I think. There are 1 or 2 other places in the country that also claim moonrakers for similar things. It's a bit like a true Scouser or Liverpudlian, I think, you know, if you're born within a certain radius. So the moonraker is the link back to...
Wow, of Kith and Kin, Moonraker's Tale. What's her name? What's it published under?
Mags Fletcher.
Mags Fletcher.
Yeah. And it's available on Amazon.
I shall find it and put it in the link along.
In the link. So she'd be delighted.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, because everyone calls me a Geordie, but I'm actually Jerovian because I come from Jarrah.
Oh, okay.
The Geordies who would call me a Jerovian.
Yeah.
You see, so we like that. You've got like Tyneside, and then within Tyneside, you've got, you know, the Sandhursts from Shields, and you've got the Jerovians from Jarrah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
so there you go. That's interesting.
It is really amazing. But Marie, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and best of luck. And let me know how her little Kira gets on as well.
I will. Yeah, she's doing really well at the minute. I mean, the tips that you gave us certainly have helped. And of course, she went and had this dental work last week, which we now think was almost certainly contributing to some of the stress that she was having. But the best thing of all is she just loves this new calming bed. Yeah, absolutely. It's night times. Oh, touch wood, don't want to speak too soon, but yeah, she seems quite settled at night, despite the fact that we've just recently changed bedding and curtains in there. I was a bit nervous about doing it, you know, think, is she going to suddenly think this is not my house anymore? No, she's fine, because she knows where.
I have just ordered one for my dogs, because we're about to redo the office, and I've ordered a really big one in the corner for the 3 of them.
Fantastic. You want to get on with them, absolutely. They're so comfy.
Oh, I will, definitely. Marie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
On the podcast, and good luck with everything. I hope it all goes.
Thank you very much. No, it's brilliant, and thanks very much for inviting me. I've enjoyed it, apart from the coffee and fit in the middle, but we're back on track. So super. Thanks very much, Les.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Marie.
And you. Bye bye.